With 1 week to go, here's my reaction. Name the starting offensive line.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Hulkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC your first listen every day. Whether you're watching me on YouTube or wherever you like to download your podcast, we are free. I'll say it again. I really appreciate your support. Show your appreciation for the show. If you're watching on YouTube, become a subscriber. We're trying to reach that goal of 4,000 before the first game. And if you like the episode, which I know you do, smash that thumbs up button. It means everything. And don't forget to hit that bell notification button. And that way you won't miss an episode Monday through Friday, 5 times a week. Hopefully, soon, offensive line coach, assistant head coach, Josh Henson, you think he's going to have to make a decision within the next day or so with 1 week left before San Jose State to name the starters for this offensive line? I mean, I get it. Until then, the competition continues. But let's be honest here. There are two players right now who have their positions locked down. And they're the most important positions on the offensive line. Justin Dietich at center. Jonah Monheim is your left tackle. That much is very clear. And I've made the argument in the past that Justin is the most valuable player on offense. And you're like, no, Caleb Williams is. Yes, but if Caleb can't get the ball to start his magic, then the offense is in big doo-doo trouble. There's no other way to say it. Look, some of us still remember the way Coach Helton tortured Toa Lobendon. I'm kidding. Sort of. You know what I'm talking about, though. But I think everyone would eventually agree, though, that Jonah Monheim is USC's best offensive lineman. And that's no disrespect to Justin Dietich or any of the other offensive linemen. But when your offensive line coach says this, he looks really good, very consistent on the left side, just like he was at right tackle. Just a really consistent guy. He's always on top of his job. Rarely does he lose fast. Very rarely. That's the mark of a good O-line. As an O-line coach, when you rarely look over and watch a guy because you're confident he's going to get his job done, that's when you know you feel pretty good about it. Jonah's a really good player. What he's talking about, does he lose fast? You're going to have to make Jonah work a long time in order to beat him and get to the quarterback. You're not going to beat him with your first move. So Coach Henson has all the confidence in the world with Jonah playing left tackle, doesn't worry about him, doesn't spend a whole lot of time having to coach him up. Same thing with Justin Dietich. So we've all heard this saying before. It's often said that when a coach has two players competing for the QB1 spot, your starting quarterback, that there's no clear separation, then you really don't have a number one. That's not a good problem to have. But that philosophy literally flies out the door when you're talking about the guys who protect the quarterback. You not only need more than 5 starters, you also want to have at least 7 guys at a minimum who, in using Coach Henson's words, you can trust, you can have confidence in. I think Coach Henson's actually inching closer to 8 or 9 guys in his room right now. Gino Quinones, he started a few times at left guard for USC last season. Right now, he's in a battle with transfer Emmanuel Prignon to be the starter in 2023. Yes, we got word. It is pronounced Prignon. Lose the G. Lose the hard G. Pretend you're French. Pronounce it like you're French. Now, Gino began fall camp at left guard as the first guy out. However, Preyon, he's been pushing really hard, and he's probably going to end up being that guy when USC starts against San Jose State. Because, again, if everything else is equal, E-Man's size is going to be the difference. It's just too tempting to pass up. What Emmanuel is learning, E-Man, is that stamina and being able to play for an entire game at USC is much different than trying to do that at Wyoming, especially on a weekly basis. Quote, Coach Henson, he's a grown man. He's grown a lot with understanding and learning the offense. I would say that he's still a guy that's growing as far as his ability to get tired and play through that. We've just got to continue to push him in that direction every day. He has a lot of upside and a lot of potential. But if you're not playing full speed, it's just potential. At the other guard position, right guard, Jarrett Kingston, I think he has that spot locked up. He's going to be the starter against San Jose State. Now, to his right, Michael Tarquin and Mason Murphy, they're going to make Josh Henson shoes. I believe Michael Tarquin's going to start. But this is a really tight battle right now. And both guys can play either tackle positions. I think Murphy is more comfortable swinging back at either left or right tackle. He started both last year at USC. Tarquin, as I mentioned, he can do both. They tried him all spring at left tackle. He's been at right tackle exclusively fall camp. Read into it what you will. Jarrett Kingston, Mason Murphy, Michael Tarquin, each can move around depending on the situation or if injuries necessitate. And this is a good problem for Coach Henson, having more than 5 starters. And while Henson wants this type of problem, eventually I think he needs to pick his best 5 and roll with it. We know Gino can play either guard position. He's done it at USC. He looks to be the guy at left guard. However, they might look at him to be the backup center. This is from Coach Henson again. Coach Henson is actually one of the best coaches to interview on USC staff. Almost an open book. Quote, center takes so many reps to get ready, and so it's been a challenge for Gino to be at center and still compete at guard too. But just getting all those reps is a huge thing for him because it's just all the little things. It's snapping the ball, obviously snapping accurate, and making all the calls and all the mental side of the game at center. So it's just been really trying to get him to the point that if something did happen injury-wise, we could put him in a game and still function at a very high level, end quote. I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. You're hearing it here. First, second, third, fourth time. Because of Gino Quinones and Mason Murphy's versatility at either guard position and either tackle position, respectively, Jonah Monheim is the backup center this year. Heaven forbid. Everybody knock on wood that Jonah never has to play center this year. That means Justin is playing every snap, as long as the game's not a blowout, every game of the year. And again, that's not a knock on anyone. That's just how special Jonah is. Coach Henson said he said this following a recent practice that they're evaluating the entire offensive line every day, and they're looking for the 5 best players each time they take the field. Another quote, you can build it at practice for sure. If you're not building chemistry in practice, it's too late by the time you get to a game. I agree. We're communicating better, working together better. We're still a work in progress. All good lines, all good teams get better between weeks 1 and 3, between week 3 and so on. They make progressions over the season, so we have progressed, but obviously we have some work to do still. You said it there at the beginning. You build it in practice. You need to build chemistry. You got to get those 5 out there to build the chemistry. So if Henson has all the pieces he needs, as well as some spare pieces just in case, but if he wants that chemistry to have that positive reaction that he was referring to, he needs to pick the best 5 and let them use game week. That's this next week of practice to start getting better. That's what I'm saying. Pick your best 5 already. I think he knows who they are. A lot of what he was saying was coach speak, but a lot of what he was saying had some truth in it. He knows he's got at least 7 guys that he can count on and feel confident starting. Now just pick the 5 and roll with it so everybody knows what's going on against San Jose State, including the guys protecting Caleb Williams. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is the perfect fit. We're just talking about the offensive line. Guess what? It's the same thing when it comes to your vehicle, because every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head on over to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure that every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage. Then look for the green mark, check it, and then you know that part's going to fit. Or you're going to get your money back, guaranteed. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. By the way, when you're over there on eBay Motors, personal plug, check out TW Herd or Section 13 Graphics. You might see some USC accessories you might like. I just got done walking everyone through, Josh Henson's mindset with just a little over a week to go before the first game. Here's something else he said about his guys, but this applies across the line of scrimmage with the defense as well. As you see on the rundown here, I'm going to start talking about stamina and depth and how that's going to be the difference. Been talking about it all off season. I'm going to really drive the point home. This is what Coach Henson said. When you're on the 4th or 5th long drive of the game and you get tired and you're exhausted, will you pull it out of yourself and bring it on play number 70, the same way you brought it on play number 2, 3, or 4? So that to me is a little bit of an unknown. That was Coach Henson referring to Emmanuel Preyon in his evaluation if he's ready to be the starter. Now, take that and apply it to the team in general. All my everyday listeners who just heard that quote from Coach Henson and think I'm like crazy for wanting to give Alex Grinch one more year, you must hate it when I'm right. Because I've been saying it for a while now. As long as the team's depth on the defensive line and linebacker have a pulse, that, plus the team's dedication during the offseason with the strength and conditioning program, it's going to make Alex Grinch look a lot better the second time around at USC, year 2. Last year, without the depth, the team wore down. End of story. Period. Does this sound familiar? Quote, the longer goes, the better we get. If you follow USC social media, that's been the team's mantra. That's what you hear Coach Riley espousing to his players. And that's been the message during the offseason. It's been said over and over and over, 3 times for emphasis. And it's been out loud by the players, by the staff. And they've been hearing that since the loss in the Cotton Bowl. They hear it at 6 a.m. during the wind sprints, and when they're pulling the tires, that's chained around their waist, and during their weightlifting sessions. I mean, it's all part of the grind. So now, when the season finally arrives, and it's that play number 70 from the line of scrimmage, but it's game number 7. In that moment, every single Trojan that's on the field can look across at his Notre Dame opponent and say, the longer it goes, the better I get. See that subtle difference? It's subliminal. But the team message during the entire offseason, the longer it goes, the better we get. That's going to be ringing over and over and over again in the heads of Mason Cobb, in Keon Bars, in Kalen Bullock. So when they continuously hear that going on and on and on in their head, when they need to make a key stop during a game, crucial moment, they're going to be able to pull on that, dig deep. And it's not just the guys who are on the field, everyone who felt last season's 2-game losing streak. All those gutty little Trojans who overachieved last year. Those guys, they are now bigger and they're stronger and they can go longer. I mean, what's the football version of Viagra? Because this team is addicted to it. So unless Grinch's X's and O's, unless his scheme is just really, really, really bad, again, 3 times for emphasis, and none of that happens, none of that stuff where USC can draw on their offseason, getting bigger and stronger and faster, incorporating all that depth. If none of that happens, none of that comes to fruition, then look, Grinch isn't going to be around much longer. Because this is USC's best opportunity to make the playoffs since last season. And Riley, look, Riley will lose the fan base if he chooses loyalty over developing his staff. Because he knows, as well as we all know, these windows, these championship windows, they close really quickly. And before you know it, it's 2024, and USC is off to the big conference. And Caleb Williams is no longer around, as well as other players might not be around who have moved on to the NFL draft, graduation, whatever the case might be. USC has the depth on defense. They focused on those issues during the offseason. That's what Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch and everybody, they put their heads together and said, all right, we need to fill these holes. They did that on defense. They actually did some more on offense too. And when they went back and looked at film, and you could see the guys breaking down, getting tired because they didn't have that depth, that's where the dedication during the offseason really, really had to really be taken to heart. And again, the longer it goes, the better USC is going to get. They're going to have enough stamina. They're going to have enough players to survive a 12-game regular season and beyond. All right, my Friday rant, it's not really a rant. It's more, but it is a reminder that USC is always going to be held to a different standard. USC fans accept it. In fact, they kind of wear like a badge of honor. You come to USC, you anticipate being held to a different standard. They should be. I mean, Heavy is the head that has to wear 11 national championship crowns. And weary are the arms that have to carry and haul around 8 bronze Heisman Awards. This is how Lincoln Riley put it. Us coming into USC year one, a different school, again, a different total situation. We attacked it a different way. I think your job as a coach is to take the situation you have, take the rules that are in the game, and then go build the best roster and the best programs that you possibly can by any means necessary within the framework of those rules. That's our job. Without knowing the context to Lincoln's quote, what he was answering, he was responding to a question with regards to Utah beating USC twice in 2022. And if there's some sort of respect compared with the way Kyle Whittingham built his roster compared to the way Lincoln Riley built his at USC. The implication being Utah did it the right way. They didn't have to go to the transfer portal as much as USC. So I guess with that backhanded slight to Lincoln Riley while building up Kyle Whittingham, Riley politely clapped back, quote, "They've done a great job of it. I think we've done a great job of it too. We had 2 tremendous games with them last year. Obviously, would expect they'll be a strong team and looking forward to having them visit LA this fall." Lincoln Riley knows in year one at Utah, didn't say it, but he knows against one of Kyle Whittingham's best teams that his Trojans went into Salt Lake City and dropped 42 points in a 1-point loss. And Riley also knows that Utah survived at home when USC broke down, literally, physically. So that part where Riley said, looking forward to having them visit LA this fall, that was the part of the message to focus on. Because 42 points on the road, that could be half a C-note plus at the Coliseum by halftime. Well, maybe not by halftime, by the end of the third quarter. I've seen USC with really prolific offenses roll up some teams like they've never been rolled up before. Don't believe me? Go ask Arkansas what it feels like to have 70 dropped on them in LA and then have another 50 dropped on them at home. Go ask UCLA what it's like to have 50 or 66 dropped on them. They know what it's like. What that question to Riley highlights is it's just another example of how USC is being held to a higher standard. That's what this rant is about. It's not really a rant. Look, in the real world, everyone likes to play the victim. And USC, for whatever reason, they get penalized for its location and the NIL opportunities that they have that other programs don't have. I mean, even Nick Saban wants to know where's the equity for the little guy. Screw the little guy. And Nick Saban. Well, I guess that's redundant. Look, USC doesn't get the same credit or respect for beating Utah that Utah would get when they beat USC. Just a fact. Let me put it to you this way. USC doesn't lose any respect when they lose a game to Notre Dame. But USC losing to Utah, it's looked at differently. That's why that question was asked to Lincoln Riley about putting together rosters and, having Utah's roster beat a roster that has a Caleb Williams and a Jordan Addison and a Travis Dye. Look, when an SEC team or a Big Ten team goes through their conference and their out-of-conference schedule and they end up with just one loss, they're given the benefit of the doubt every single time. I've brought up the 2008 season a few times and how USC literally, they got shafted because of the standard that USC gets held to. Losing to Oregon State on the road, it's not acceptable across the country. The people in charge just hold USC to a different standard. You can't lose to Oregon State in Corvallis. Unacceptable. Apparently, you can be Florida and you can lose at home to Mississippi State. That's acceptable. Whatever. Look, Lincoln Riley summed it up best. He said this at Pac-12 Media Day. I think coaching or playing at USC is one of the great responsibilities in our sport. This is the program that is so important to the sport, to the success of football on the West Coast in general. And it has such a great history. I think we all see it like that, right? Well, without USC's standard, West Coast football cannot exist. And if you want to argue about that point, ask the remaining Pac-4 conference members who sets the standard. There it is. That's my Friday rant. My reminder that USC is held to a higher standard than just about every other program in the country. And that includes some other blue bloods. So I will be back with another episode of Locked on USC on Monday. We will be in game week at that point. You need to make sure you're checking in with Locked on USC every day. Make sure you're a subscriber. And if you have friends and family, make them a subscriber. It's free, it's easy, and they won't regret it. And when you're done making Locked on USC your first listen every day, part of the Locked on Network, then head on over to weareSC.com because there is a lot of great VIP subscription stuff you don't want to miss. From recruiting to team coverage to op-ed pieces. Head on over. But I look forward to seeing all my everyday viewers and listeners right back here Monday on Locked on USC. So until then, everybody, you know what to do.